Welcome. On behalf of the Fletcher family and Wilshire Baptist Church, thank you for being here today. Today we gather to honor and remember our dear friend, Tom Fletcher. We come with hearts full of both sorrow and gratitude. We come as friends, family, and community, drawn together by Tom's life and the unique gifts he shared so freely with all of us. Tom shared with us an energetic spirit, his gregarious laughter, and filled our hearts with deep, beautiful music. His music making was a beautiful representation of just one of the many ways he shared his love with us and his dear family. It is that love that binds us together now to reflect, to remember, and to celebrate the legacy he leaves with us. In our time together today, we'll hear stories of Tom from friends and loved ones, and we'll hear his very own voice in music. A voice that resonated deeply for so many across Dallas and here at Wilshire through Wilshire Winds. As we move through these next few moments, may our time together be a reminder of the preciousness of life, the importance of using our gifts to bless others as Tom did, and the enduring connections we share together in community. Although we mourn, we do not mourn without hope. Through our love, the gift of memory and community, we find strength knowing that a life well lived like Tom's has a lasting, joyful impact that neither time nor loss can erase. May we all be encouraged to live as Tom did, to play as Tom did, sharing our talents and our lives with open hearts. Hear now these words of encouragement from Psalm 147. Hallelujah. It is sweet to sing praise to the Lord who rebuilds the city and brings the scattered people home. God heals broken hearts and binds their wounds up, counts all of the stars and gives name to every one. But no one can count God's wisdom. Sing thanks to the Lord who covers heavens with the clouds, makes rain for the earth and grass on the mountains. God feeds young ravens when they cry and all the other beasts, blesses your children, gives you peace and the best things to eat. The ones who please the Lord long for God's love and kindness. God's word races down the earth, so we sing our praise to God. Hallelujah.
Wow, that was beautiful. Those notes came out of that horn right there. My goodness. I met Tom in the early 80s at Orchard Hills Baptist Church in Garland, both of us playing in the church orchestra. Soon thereafter, Tom and I formed a brass quintet from within our church. That quintet continued to enjoy rehearsing together and playing for others for many years. It was while Tom and I were members of Orchard Hills Baptist Church that Tom's son, Jason, and Joyce were married. Tom and I got to talking, and he came up with the idea of taking our quintet and doubling it into a double quintet, 10 instruments and 10 musicians. We had a lot of fun doing that and immensely enjoyed that wedding. Well, our next step was to form the Christian Jazz Band. Tom and I talked about it, and we found some appropriate music, and we added saxophones and a percussion section. And from there, the Dallas Christian Jazz Band was formed, still playing today, and just a wonderful group. Several years later, Tom and I were discussing how much fun it was playing German music, German Oompa music, if you will. We got to looking around and found some music for a small German band. We started talking to other musicians in the Dallas area, and soon the Kleine Blasmusik German Band was formed. We started playing at the Bavarian Grill in Plano, played there for quite a few years. Tom was featured on several numbers. You know, he was phenomenal at playing German music, where so many of the songs actually honor the euphonium. And it was just a beautiful thing to hear him play those German songs. Well, Tom continued to be featured with many other groups throughout the Dallas area and across the state. He played a lot of times in New Braunfels during the Wurstfest, which is happening this very weekend. Tom learned and mastered a music software package called Finale, which was one of the toughest software programs I've ever seen in my life. I couldn't figure it out. Tom figured it out. He was able to transcribe, create, and arrange music. Much of his work is found in several local libraries today. Tom had a heart of gold. He was so modest about his musicianship, yet he was one of the best euphonium players I've ever known. I had the good fortune in college to room with a euphonium player, and unfortunately he passed soon after college, and the same thing that we heard today happened then. It is so beautiful to hear a great musician's music being played when we gather together to celebrate their lives. Some of his song renditions were also featured on WRR. Our daughter Nikki would often have WRR playing in the kitchen on their stereo while she got her kids ready for school, and they always enjoyed hearing Tom play on WRR. Tom loved his family, and I pray God's blessing and comforting embrace on you all and each and every one of you. It's tough to lose somebody like Tom. Life does go on, and Tom would want life to go on. But what a wonderful guy he is, and I do pray his blessings on all of you. I'm so glad that I had the privilege to get to know Tom. I consider him to be one of the very best friends I ever had. He's going to be sorely missed. Heaven's Choir and Orchestra may have just taken it up another notch.
Hello, everyone. My name is Steve Hall. I played with Tom for a little over 30 years, off and on many different groups. I met Tom in the mid-90s. Used to drum for him with the Dallas Christian Jazz Band with Skip. And from there, that started a friendship that's lasted up until the day he died. Bear with me a little bit. I'm not a huge public speaker, but what I wanted to do today, I did want to share some stories, talking to band members, talking to what we, the last few weeks, just individual memories about Tom. Well, I'll tell you, Dallas Christian Jazz Band, one of the things I remember from years was one of the first times in the studio. And Tom had recorded Abide With Me. And, you know, Tom was an excellent trombone player. And we recorded that, and I'm like, after we were done, it was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever heard. And if you haven't heard it, please take a chance to listen. But nothing prepared me for later on down the road when we, Skip called me up and said, hey, we were forming a 12-piece German band. Well, as a drummer, I go, so we're gonna play polkas and oompa music, really? And he goes, and I asked Skip, I said, who's playing in the band? First person he said was Tom. I said, sign me up. Okay, well, so we get together for our first rehearsal, and it was I don't remember where the church was, and we pass out all this music, and the music was horrendous. Not the actual music, but the music itself. Musician-wise, there were double DSs all over the place. They tried to compress as much music as they could into a little, you know, marching band piece of music. So we're all going through here, and fortunately, Tom goes, I can fix that. And as Skip shared, he was able to go into finale and fix all of our music. But during that rehearsal, we were introduced to Tom's signature showpiece, Ernst im Allgäu. I didn't pronounce it right, but in 20 years, I still can't pronounce it. I heard the most incredible thing in my life. I've heard Tom play, but then I heard Tom play. It is one of the most technically challenging euphonium pieces I've ever heard. And I almost couldn't finish playing it through. I was just in shock. So for the next at least 10 years, we played at Bavarian Grill together. Once a month, sometimes twice a month, sometimes a lot more than that. And after a couple of years, it's like, oh yeah, Tom's playing this piece again. Well, as the drummer, I had control of the tempo. Well, for years, we'd find, you know, we'd imbibe a few, 10, 20, and finally hit the point and go, you know what? I wonder how fast we can really take this. So we're going along here, and we go along in normal tempo. He's going along. Well, at the end, we would always speed it up. Well, finally at the point, I'm trying to see if I can get Tom to fold, really. I want to see if I can get him. It's like, can I get him to crash? No one's listening to us right now. Everyone's drunk. And he goes, I will tell you one thing. I never beat him. Okay, there were days, you know, normal tempos here. We hit the end. He'd just nail it. And I'm sitting there like, dude. And he'd turn around and give me a face. He's like, yeah, bastard, you tried it. And I never got him to fail. So I said, okay, Tom. So I wrote a few pieces for Kleine Blasmusik, and one of them I arranged was called The Happy Wanderer. And we get to the middle of it, and I'm like, what am I gonna do here? Oh yeah, I'm gonna write this euphonium duet. I'm gonna see if he can nail it. I'll be darned, he nailed it every stinking time. And I wrote it hard. I was like, I wanna give you a challenge here. He's like, you gotta try again, son. So just for years, we would, you know, and I hate to say it, sometimes you take people for granted. Tom, I could never take for granted. You know, if you know me, I mean, I can be difficult sometimes. Tom would just laugh at me and say, "Go sit down." I mean, it was great. And that relationship carried on. I had moved away to Austin and moved back, and we would start playing Oktoberfest gigs. And the last several years, a little bit before COVID, and even supposed to be even this year, we would play all over Dallas. We would play Maple Branch Brewery, we play South Lake, Frisco. And every time we get together, you could just see Tom light up. He was in his element. He got to play the music he really liked to play. And if you see up here, he would even arrange a lot of the tunes that we did. And we used to joke, we know when Tom would arranged it, and it's on this piece of music right up here, he always signed it the Lone Deranger. And some of the things that we were able to play, I mean, it is very different when you're at Oktoberfest. You expect, oh, we're gonna play polkas and waltzes. No, here's Tom pulling out the theme to Blazing Saddles. So we're going along, and all of a sudden, you just see the audience just turn and go, what are they? Oh my gosh, they're playing that? I said, yep, that's Tom. And there were multiple pieces that we would sit there and do, just play that too. But this past year, you know, I would do what I normally do. If I got called for a job, I'd call Tom first. Are you gonna be on this gig? Oh yeah. We would always carpool to the majority of these gigs, give us time to catch up, and you know, it was great fellowship. And most of our conversations, I mean, obviously we talk about music, talk a little bit about politics. One thing we would always talk about was the family. Amy, kids, grandkids, he loved y'all very much. He talked about y'all constantly. When we would talk, we'd talk about every 3 to 6 months. Always, Tom, what are you doing tonight? I'm coming to hang out with my kids, and I'm going to a grandkids event. I'm going to a football game. I'm going to this award ceremony. Always, he talked about y'all all the time. It was crazy. I mean, Amy, I don't know if you know this, but years ago, the wife and I were going to Las Vegas, and Tom goes, oh yeah, we just came from MGM. I mean, this was years ago. And I go, well, where should I go? And he goes, oh, I've got this slot machine Amy and I found. You gotta go play this. And I go, well, what do you mean? And he goes, oh, well, here's the serial numbers. You'll go find it. So I was like, you wrote the serial numbers down to the slot machines? Really? So we go to the MGM, and we go play at the 2 machines that he tells us to go play. And I go, Tom told us that they hit this every time. So we're playing, and all of a sudden my wife hit something. And she goes, why isn't this paying out? I look over, it was the machine he told us to play. She wasn't betting enough. So, but it happens. But constantly, that's what he was talking about, y'all. Every conversation we'd have. I mean, we talk about Finale, I could bore you with that. Music, you know, he would play me what he had arranged and played recently. And a lot of this we're hearing today, he was showing me what he was doing, I was showing him what I was doing. And it was great. Every time we would talk, you know, it was kind of like we'd pick up a conversation we had 6 months before. It was crazy. But Tom was that kind of guy. You know, my friend David Washburn, who I play with, played in Kleiner Blast Music, shared a story with me. David had lost his son years ago. And just to tell you what kind of person Tom was, he called the guys together, and they all went and met with David just to help support. and cherish. That's the kind of guy Tom Fletcher was. I'll tell you, this year was really difficult. Now, Tom had missed some jobs, some playing times in the past due to illness. This year, again, another year, I get the call we were gonna go play out in Fort Worth. And so first call I made was to Tom. I said, hey man, we on this year? I says, I'm only doing this if you're gonna be there. And he goes, oh yeah, man, I'm good to go. Well, a week later, I get a call from him. Steve, I'm in the ICU. I'm like, why the hell are you in the ICU, Tom? And he told me, he says, I've got double pneumonia. I was like, oh no. I said, do you need anything? He said, no. He goes, I'm gonna beat this. Well, I got the text from John, Tom's brother, saying that, oh, they're moving him out of ICU and they were gonna go into rehab. And then I get another text saying they put him back in. And Tom called me and said, you might wanna come see me. So I went up there and Tom was fully cognizant, he couldn't breathe very well. And I was with my friend Arthur out there, and he shared that, he's like, I could not make it from this. And we told him, he said, Tom, you have a gig in 2 weeks, man. You're not allowed, no, you're not allowed to do this. And I'm sorry if I'm being selfish a little bit, but that's how Tom made you want to feel. I mean, you wanted to hang out with Tom, okay? And unfortunately, it went the wrong way, and fortunately, I got to see him the day before, and got to sit with Amy, and I did get my last rib into him, even though I think I got a rise out of him. He turned a little bit. Skip had talked about Finale, the music software. Well, if musician-wise or not, Finale just sunsetted their product. So I walked in the door and I looked at him and said, Tom, you killed Finale. And I swear I saw him twitch a little bit on that. And, it was one of the hardest things I think I've ever seen. My friend sitting here. But Tom was well remembered by everybody. I mean, first thing, we get to our first job this year that we were gonna have with him, and that's all we talked about the entire day, was how much we miss Tom. We miss his playing. More importantly, we miss him. But Tom, I do want to share, because I know you can hear me, and I know I'm going to be able to play with you again one day. But something I found pertinent, and this really touched me. When you wait to find that a profound inspiration in your life has passed, your mind scatters in 1,000 different directions. Like searching through an old photo book to find one particular picture that you know is there somewhere, you try to remember all the times you spoke or saw or thought of the person that you will never see again. We all will come and go. What we hope to leave behind is that gift. Tom Fletcher left so many gifts behind that for all of us, it's like Christmas every day. Tom, you touched us all so deeply. Your talent, your humor, your friendship, and your inspiration will forever live on. Thank you, Tom. You will be missed, and we love you very much.
Good morning. My name is Al Karam. I'm a physician here in Dallas, and I want to thank Amy, Larry, Pat, John, and Betty for allowing me to speak here today. As Skip and Steve have told you, there are many stories about Tom, most of them revolving around his music, his musicianship, and that beautiful horn that you see here today. By the way, that horn has never looked so good. I don't know that Tom polished it very much, but boy, it sure looks good today. I first met Tom in the Richardson Community Band in 2009, shortly after George Jones, our director, asked Tom to play with the band and perform some solos. And I had been a member of the band since 1991, but had to take a step aside. My wife and I have 6 children, and those little children took up a lot of our time. So I stepped back from the band in the early 2000s and then rejoined probably in 2009 or 2010. And when I returned, there were several other euphonium players there. Didn't know if I was going to hang around, but I did, and I'm very thankful that I did. And sitting next to him for rehearsals and for performances is where our relationship and our acquaintance developed. The first time, and I'm going to, unfortunately, you're going to have to sit through a couple of redundant things that Skip and Steve have told you, but you'll get the message. But the first time I heard him play, I was amazed. Tom had the best tonal quality of anyone I'd ever heard. And all the music that you've heard, of course, is Tom playing on his horn. And if you notice some of the pieces, there was, it sounded like there was more than one person playing. That was all Tom. He played the accompaniment and everything. I'm just amazed that he was able to do that and put all that together. Technically, he was amazing, as I think Steve told you about. I've never seen fingers fly as fast on that instrument and almost any other instrument as I know. Before rehearsals, Tom would warm up. To hear him warm up was amazing. And he would doodle on his horn. I don't know how to do it. He would play all sorts of exercises, or he would start to play one of his many very difficult solos that he had memorized. His vibrato was perfect, articulation spot on. He hit every note in the center. How could he do this? Well, in a word, it was practice. Most of you may know this or may not, but I think, and Tom would tell me, he practiced almost every day. Amy, is that right? He practiced every day. I didn't practice every day. He was so good. And I don't know if you realize this, but just a few short months ago, Tom played in our band in a performance and performed 2 solos, one of which was Danny Boy, the first song that you heard. As the years went on, he would talk to me about the various groups he played with, from other wind ensembles to the Wilshire Winds to German bands, which he really loved. He told me of traveling with one group in particular on long road trips and playing at various events, mostly Oktoberfest throughout the state of Texas. I was in awe of his abilities. During rehearsals, he did the doodle stuff, but when the band director would stop and realize we've only had 2 band directors, George Jones and Robin Owens, I don't know that either of them realized it, but when they would stop the music, Tom would doodle. And I think he did it so fast and so well that the directors never noticed. And the director would stop the band, he would doodle, either up or down, very quick, very fast, and I was always so jealous that he could do this on a whim. Afterwards, I would just stare at him, and he would look at me and smile. He was good, and he knew it, and that's okay. The other thing he did that was similar, he would end the phrase of a piece of music, as if the band director was going to shut us down to rehearse a particular point, he would play the last note slightly out of tune. He would either lip it up or lip it down, or play an alternative fingering, or play in a minor key to make that last note. And then, I would just shake my head, and I'd look at him again, and he would laugh at me. During rests, when we were playing, if we had an 8-measure, 16-measure rest, he would sit there and he would direct the band sitting in the seat with us. And with one hand, he would count the rest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2. And he would just sway back and forth. He loved to perform. He loved to play. He loved to perform. He did. And I know you've heard that from Skip and Steve today. During break with the Richardson Band, he would pull out solos that he had played, and he would give me a copy without me asking. I still have them. I have every solo that he's given me. They're very hard. No way I'm going to be able to play them. I still haven't. He was excellent in working with the software Finale to edit pieces. As you've heard, he played bass clef on the euphonium. For those of you who don't know much about the music side of things, especially euphonium, euphonium is unique in many ways. One of the ways is that you can either play treble clef or bass clef. It's the same notes, it's just written in a different clef. Well, I had learned to play treble clef, Tom played bass, and without me asking, he would send me or bring to me the treble clef as I played treble. It was just so kind and nice of him to do that. And then Tom asked me to play one time, several years ago, pre-COVID, into the German band that you have heard already speak about with Steve, called Kleinbass Music, at the Bavarian Bar and Grill. Here's Tom Fletcher, the most accomplished musician, the best euphonium player by far, asking me to play with his German band. And I still have the music. This is the music that he gave me. And what's the first one here? Ein Prosit, right? But this is the Kleinbass Music playlist that I still have. I had a blast. I played with them twice. I hope I didn't perform too badly. I'm sure there's some members that are here. I'm sorry, I missed a few notes, missed a few entrances, but I never rehearsed with them, so I tried to play this, and the first time I ever played with them was at the Bavarian Bar and Grill. My family came, they had a blast, they ate, had lunch, and I thank Tom. I've never done anything like that. It was so much fun. After Tom figured out that I was a physician, he would start to ask me about his health. What was he was doing about it as his health was declining. I'm a pediatrician, so he's an adult. But I was able to make some phone calls for him at times, and he was able to get him some appointments with some colleagues of mine who are adult physicians. One Wednesday night in 2018, I either called Tom or he called me, and he was talking a bit of nonsense. And Amy, you may remember this. He was not going to come rehearsal. He didn't feel well, but he was talking really odd. Amy gets on the phone with me. Al, can you please tell him we need to go to the emergency room? Got him back on the phone. Tom, you need to go to the emergency room. Okay. Followed my instructions, and at that time he was diagnosed with a very severe, life-threatening infection. He was admitted into the intensive care unit, and by that time he was in a coma. He stayed in the ICU for several days. I stayed in touch. I don't know if Amy called me or I called her. And then one day she called and says, he's out of the intensive care unit. Oh boy, I get to go visit. So jumped in my car to see him. When I walked into the room, I saw Amy and started to talk to her. And all of a sudden he said, hello, Mr. Al. Later he told me, Amy, I don't know if this is true or not, I hope I don't step on your toes. He told me that I was the first person he saw when he awoke from the coma. And he told me that was pretty special. He also told me as he was getting ill that time that he would hallucinate during that few days before his admission, and he would play songs on his euphonium without his euphonium there. He would be moving his fingers. Oh my gosh, who does this? Tom Fletcher does this. Well, he recovered from that, joined the band again, and we were so happy to have him back, and me and my friend Tom got to play music. As many of you know, Tom's health deteriorated over the last year and few months, but he continued to rehearse and play, and as I mentioned before, he was able to play with the band at a concert and played 2 solos with us just a few short months ago. I'm convinced that his lungs benefited from his playing every day. To blow into that instrument, there's resistance, and you have to blow, and it expands your lungs, and I'm convinced that that helped him get through those last few weeks and months better than he would. I will miss my friend, Tom Fletcher. I will miss him doodling, calling me Mr. Al, wearing his hat. And if I look like Tom, it's because we do use the same barber. But this hat he would wear and just, again, he would look and grin. I'll miss him again calling me Mr. Al. That was very special. And is also his trademark, thank you very little. The word euphonium in Greek is for well-sounding or sweet-voiced. I think we can all agree that Tom literally made this instrument sing, that it was well-sounding and sweet-voiced. Goodbye, my friend. I will miss you now. I will miss you at each rehearsal and performance, and may you rest in peace.
Please excuse me if I read this. My memory is not what it used to be, and it never was good. My name's Toppy Hill, and I went to school with Tom Fletcher. We all had nicknames, and his was Fletch. I met Tom at South Garland High School in 1969 as an incoming junior 54 years ago. As I was getting familiar with the new band members, I was drawn to this euphonium player. He was funny, upbeat, goofy, and immensely talented. As high school progressed, Tom became an all-state player and was encouraged by another outstanding euphonium player, our beloved band director, Arthur Bernard. During this time, Tom also became a member in the BBR. That stands for the Boys in the Back Room, a harmless prankster group of guys with an ominous name. As well as music, Tom was also gifted in athletics. He had boundless energy and was constantly organizing football scrimmages between the guys in the band. He could handle the ball, organize plays, throw and outrun all of us. He was unaffected by rain, heat, or extreme cold. It didn't matter. This continued into his college years. There was a small group of us that received various scholarships to attend East Texas State, now Texas A&M Commerce. Tom and I agreed to room together and did so for 2 semesters. We didn't have a lot of free time because of our course load and relentless marching band practices. Standard college degrees were 120 credit hours, but music majors degrees were 160 credit hours, and our days were full. We had the same classes and rehearsal schedules. The classes ran from 7:30 in the morning till 10:30 at night, with recitals, listening labs, and rehearsals that took up after class time. At lunch, we would go back to the dorm, and most of the time, there would be an intramural football game starting up between the different dormitories. Tom would hand me his books and haul out to the soccer fields, ripping his shirt off as he ran. His energy level was off the charts. We never understood how this guy kept moving. I have to ask, Amy, did Tom still suck the toothpaste out of the tube instead of spreading it on the brush? This was new to me. But it made good sense because we had little money at the time, and that was a great way to keep a cheap roommate from stealing your toothpaste. And today, I still suck the toothpaste out of the tube. My wife has her own toothpaste. Tom was a pledge and fraternity brother in Phi Mu Alpha Sinfonia music fraternity. Johnny Clements was his big brother who helped guide Tom in his duties and obligations of the organization. We were a service fraternity, which meant donating our time and efforts in raising money to promote music and musical activities on campus. Jason, your dad and I were lounging in our dorm room on a boring weekend, and I recall our conversation about wanting to have children later in life. And we both agreed that we did. The subject came up about what to name these kids. I can't remember any of his suggestions, but I said, you know, I like the name Jason. That's got a real manly, modern sound to it. Hold on to that thought. The end of our sophomore year, we had moved on to different residences. And I didn't see Tom for a long time, and nobody seemed to know what happened to him. Years later, I learned from a mutual friend that Tom and his girlfriend, Terry, had gotten married and were starting a family, and Tom was working at Kraft. It also came up that his son's name is Jason. And I had a flashback to that time in our dorm room. So, Jason, if you like your name, you're welcome. And if you don't, that's life. I tried to catch up on Tom's exploits with Uncle Bill and Aunt Barbara when I was playing in the Acts Methodist Praise Band. But as many Fletchers as there are in Garland, it's impossible to keep up with what's happening at any time. And I'm amazed you people are Baptist. I would have thought you were Catholic. There are too many of you. Fast forward decades, after we were established, I started to see Tom more often. I had been working in a series of music stores around Dallas, and Tom would occasionally drop in and talk and update me on his activities. After 37 plus years at Kraft, Tom retired in 2010, but in classic Tom fashion, he wasn't slowing down a bit. He was still playing in church orchestras, Christian jazz bands. He was teaching private lessons. He was playing more trombone and tuba, which also showcased his versatility. Tom then goes into detail about his polka band performances at Oktoberfest celebrations in Granbury and other German communities. By now, I'm ready for a nap. But wait, there's more. He told me that he had been struggling with a massive case of COVID. I wondered, how do you summon this level of energy with COVID? He hadn't told me about his other health issues. Tom's faith in God was his inner strength and his life force. We talked about his involvement with the Frontier Brigade, which required him to dress in custom-made, authentic uniforms of the time period. They went to great pains and expense to get the details right. No watches, no present-day boots or shoes, no modern hairstyles, no contemporary eyeglass frames. He had to find someone to make Civil War eyewear for him. He explained that was not cheap, but it was just part of his passion in the music and the experience. I've learned a lot about Tom just today, and I want to thank you for letting me say a few words about him. 54 years ago, I wouldn't have believed that I would be up here reminiscing about Tom, but the good Lord must have needed a good-hearted, energetic, talented musician to complement his heavenly orchestra. Tom, God has blessed you mightily with a great life and a wonderful family. We will miss you, buddy.
I never really considered that one day I would be saying goodbye to one of my brothers. I guess I always assumed that we would all live much, much longer. And Tom was the oldest of 4 boys, and I was number 2. And Tom and I often got into trouble together. Like the time we played barber with our neighbor, and we actually cut his hair. Apparently his mother was not too fond of our artistic work, but we moved shortly after that, and I don't remember ever seeing that young man again. Growing up, our dad's company moved us often. People thought we were in the military. They moved us from Waco to Little Rock, then back to Waco, and then to Garland, and that's where Tom got off the train. We other 3 all got off at different places after that because they kept moving my father. But with 4 boys, it was usually loud and rambunctious, and I guess for Mom's sake, fortunately, air conditioning was a luxury that we did not usually have. And so we spent most of our time outdoors, regardless of the season or the weather. Fortunately, as brothers, we had our arguments, disagreements, and even fights among ourselves, but Tom was always the big brother if someone else wanted to tangle with us. He wasn't really happy with me the time we went fishing and I was casting and managed to catch the treble hook in the back of his neck. And of course, I'd not let go, so it really sank those barbs in. I immediately ran across to the other side of the pond so he couldn't get me, but he forgave me. But some people, and you've heard, like Tom, were blessed with athletic ability. That was something he got most of, so there was none left for me. In Arkansas, we lived across the street from the elementary school, and it had a basketball court, it had a baseball field with a backstop, and it had a huge open area with pine trees and lots of rocks. And that's where we spent most of the time. All the neighborhood boys would gather to play, and although I was always the last one to be picked for a team, Tom always made sure if someone said they didn't want to get stuck with me that I was chosen for his team. And Tom taught me a lot because I became excellent at chasing foul balls and retrieving basketballs that had gone off the court. Tom tried to teach me, but I didn't have the talent. And for those of you old enough to remember playing horse, Tom and I would go across the street and we would play horse. And by the time I got the H, or maybe the O, Tom had already spelled horse, colt, stallion. And of course he teased me about it, but at the end of the day, I always knew he loved me. We, or he, often got in trouble by doing things like climbing on top of the elementary school building to retrieve stray golf balls, going to the creek, or riding his bicycle as fast as he could down the hill in the schoolyard. He still had scars on his shoulder to the day he died from an awesome wreck at the bottom of the hill, which also landed him in the poison ivy. He and the neighbors once raised the swing up in our backyard in the swing set, got on the ladder and started jumping through. They had gotten it raised pretty high when he dared me to do it, and he was very apologetic when I got home from the hospital. He excelled in band starting in junior high in Arkansas, then high school in Waco, and then on to South Garland High School. And I can remember in Waco him practicing his marching and playing downtown or Sloopy in the front yard for hours. He also spent hours making sure that his white shoes had no scuffs and no grass stains. He loved his horn, and as you've heard, he made All-State. He did solos and ensembles and went to state several times with that. And then he and several of his friends went to East Texas State, where he continued to hone his talent, as we now call it, the euphonium. Back then, we all referred to it as the baritone. He worked at Kraft Foods for almost 40 years, and one year, for Mother's Day, he gave my mom a gallon of Thousand Island dressing. I never knew or hope to know again how many ways you can use Thousand Island dressing. It became almost an additive to every meal to try and use it up before it went bad. And I hope I'm not out of line or that you don't report me to Kraft, but Tom always said to never eat the low-fat Miracle Whip. He said if it clogged up the pipes that badly, who knew what it was doing to your arteries? So maybe that was supposed to be a secret. We usually got together for Thanksgiving, and where we had great times recalling stories and sharing and entertaining each other. As you've heard, he had a great sense of humor and often surprised us with some of his actions. One Thanksgiving in Waco, we were iced in. There were about 10 or 11 of us at Mom's 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. We were bored to death, a little cabin fever, and Tom left the room. And when he returned, he was wearing a pair of black bikini underwear, a pink lacy nightie, and cowboy boots. There are pictures, but we unfortunately could not find them in order to share them with you today. I learned a lot from Tom, but the best thing I ever learned from Tom was how to love my grandkids. He was always there for them, taking them to school as well as to and from lessons, sporting activities. And I don't know how many miles he put on that minivan, and it wasn't like the kids just lived just down the block from him. He went to work in the wee hours of the morning at Kraft so he could be off in order to pick his grandkids up from school and spend time with them in the afternoons. I think the thing that I'll miss most is talking with him about his music and his arrangements that he did. And as you've talked about his talent, he would always tell me about all the groups he was playing with. And he would always say, I have no idea why they let somebody like me play with them. They are all so talented. I just cannot believe that they let me play and they tolerate me. He was one of the most humble people I have ever met with regards to the talent that he had. I loved listening to his arrangements, and I was so proud, and it's right down here, when he was able to finally publish a low brass arrangement of Come to Me, which you heard earlier, by Dan Forrest. Dan Forrest is one of the most prolific and popular composer arrangers in the last 20 years. And Dan actually saw Tom's arrangement and praised it. I just wish Tom had published more so his music would live on for years and years to come. But we do have recordings. Tom, I was blessed to have you for a big brother. My life, all our lives, will have a hole in it that no one else can ever fill. I love you, man.
would laugh about right now, me getting up those steps. When I put the service together, I looked and I said, hey, let's save the Baptist preacher for last. This will be great, and I promised myself I can get through this, and I'm going to stick to my notes. Tom is my big brother. I was his favorite youngest brother. And I would have to remind him of that. There are a few things. Y'all have heard a lot about Tom with his music. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Tom, the brother. Tom taught me how to ride a bike. I promised myself I'd get through this. And we will. He took the training wheels off my bike. As a senior in high school, he took the training wheels off and said, you can do it. You're talking about his athletic ability. Tom taught me to throw a baseball. He taught me to throw and kick a football. And he would say, here's how you hold it. Here's how you do it again. Do it again. You can get it. I never played, but I learned how to do it. He made me want to be in band. So I was in band my junior high years, and Tom was not mad at me when I quit band and went to choir. He said, that's okay, I'll take your trombone. I think Tom still has my trombone. Our dad passed away in 1987, and Tom taught me how to be a dad. With Jason and Mitzi when they were little, he would get on the floor and wrestle with Jason and Mitzi. I saw the paddle a while ago, the fraternity paddle, that Tom would bring to the house, and if Jason or Mitzi said something, he would reach over and just grab the handle of the paddle. I looked at him one day and I said, have you ever used it? He says, not on them, but they don't know that, nor would I ever. But like Larry was saying, he taught me to be a grandfather with Cameron and Jessica and Braden, with Jackson, and with Tatum. I talked with a lot of different people and asked them about coming to speak on Tom's behalf. Some couldn't be here, and Matt Tolentino made this statement. He said, I'm sorry I can't be there, but let me say this about Tom. Whoever Tom played with, he always made them better. And the groups he played with made them better. That was Tom. That was Tom. James Feltenberger told me this. He says, Tom was a man of faith, and he let his faith show through his music. Of the 7 songs that you will hear today, Danny Boy is the only one that does not have a religious or biblical background to it. That's Tom. That is Tom. One of the last times I talked with Tom, I looked at him and I said, being a minister, being his brother, I looked at him and said, can we talk about Jesus? Tom looked at me, he pulled the mask off of his face and he said, my relationship with Jesus is solid. Tom placed his faith and trust in Jesus Christ. Tom put the mask back on and started taking big, deep breaths. Tom told me, he said, when I get better, I want to do more with my faith. And I just mentioned that 6 of the 7 songs reflect that. One of the biggest things I'm missing about Tom right now is the phone calls. We would talk 4 to 5 times a day. And yes, we always talked about music. And one of the things, if you've ever talked to Tom on the phone, I'm doing this piece of music. It goes like this. And it's like, repeat that. And he could. But it would be nothing to be sitting at my desk at church and I get a text message. Hey, I just sent you an email about a new song. Can you listen to it? 2 minutes later, hey, have you listened to the song yet? Dude, I haven't even gotten on the computer. And then he would say, have you listened to it? Have you listened to it? Have you listened to it? And I'd have to go and listen to it, and then I'd have to call him. Okay. And he would ask me, he says, I don't know. He asked me how to record all of this. You realize that all of the songs you hear, he recorded in his den on a very simple recording program, and he says, I don't know what to do with it from here. Okay, Tom, no problem. So we took care of that. Tom became the surrogate dad for me. When he was in the hospital, one of the nurses walked in, and I had my glasses on top of my head, much like what Tom would do, and she walked in and she looked at him in the bed, and she looked at me, looked at him and looked at me and said, are y'all brothers? And I said, no. And Tom says, yes, this is my brother, he's the minister. And then she looks at us and she says, are y'all twins? And I suddenly thought that's either really good for him or really bad for me, because there's 11 years difference. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. The last song you're going to hear today is called Benediction. It's one of Tom's favorites. Tom had more fun with this, and he actually arranged it for a tuba quartet, 2 euphoniums and 2 tubas. But he would play all 4 parts on this recording. And I need to tell you about this. I looked it up. The word benediction means a closing of a service, but it does not mean a finality. Only until we meet again. And I think that's the perfect song as we close out today with benediction, because Tom placed his faith in Jesus Christ. For those of us that have placed our faith in Jesus Christ, this is not goodbye. This is see you later. And for those that know this story, you'll get it. Tom never ended a phone call without at least saying, or at least with me, without saying, I love you. And I would try so hard to beat him to say, I love you first. Because Tom, I love you, man. Man, you beat me to it, you know? And it's like, but right now I can say, I love you, Tom, and I beat him to it. This time, I beat him to it. And before we hear this, I want to pray for us as we wrap up today and you hear this. By the way, there's going to be a reception. It's this way, right? There's a reception back through this way when we're done, if you want to come back there. But I want to pray for us as we wrap up, as we remember, as we honor Tom, the dad, the brother, the peepaw, the musician, the friend. Pray with me if you would. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to honor a man that loved you, a man that you gave talents and ability to, that he turned around and used it for you. Father, thank you for that. I pray for all of our family. God, we would rely on you that you would give us the strength, give us the peace that we need as we move forward. Father, thank you for the time we had with Tom. It's in Jesus' name we pray.